Welcome back to Special Report on what is happening in South Korea right now and how this impacts the United States. So for discussion, let's bring in Pastor 숀문 Moon with Sanctuary Church, who is joining us in studio. Pastor, thank you so much for joining us. But first, let's start out just with a little bit of your background and why you have such, you understand South Korea so well.
Thank you so much, Tara and Brian, for having us. But yeah, my father was in a North Korean death camp, was freed by the U.S. forces in 1950 and immigrated here. So he always taught that communism is political Satanism. As a pastor, it's a force that Christians must stand against. And so he's been always very active in fighting the left, especially because they are the greatest proponents of centralized government and communism. And started the Washington Times in America, Segiilbo in Korea, and also Sekai Nippo in Japan, and other papers even in South America.
You know, I was looking here. What is the influence of the CCP in North Korea in all of this? And also, are either one of them involved in what we're seeing now?
Well, it's interesting because the political landscape of South Korea has changed dramatically since 2020 during the COVID crisis that the whole world encountered. And similar to what we encountered in the U.S. with the mail-in ballot fraud, the cheating of the election, the stealing of the 2020 election, Korea had something similar in its Congress legislative midterms. And so he had a sweeping, quote, victory of the radical left in Korea that basically took over the Congress. They don't have a Senate system there, but they have a Congress that was basically overrun by the very radical faction of the left. And all the same criteria that we saw in America with the mail-in ballots, the voter fraud, the stealing of the election, all these things were also resonating and happening in Korea. So there was a huge outcry from the population to investigate the voter fraud issues. And they had to be investigated within about 130 days, according to the judiciary. But the first case was investigated 400 days out. So they were just stalling, and basically saying that nothing was being done, nothing had happened, and they were doing massive censorship campaigns like the ones we saw in the West.
Like the U.S., what we saw here.
Exactly what we saw here. You would be banned off platforms if you even questioned election integrity or election fraud. So a lot of our people on the ground who are very active were being banned from social media. So it's kind of the same kind of thing that we were encountering in the...
And that's the same thing, too, with the mainstream media. It's very hard to find any kind of like what's really happening in South Korea, no matter on the right or the left. Nobody seems to really understand what's going on because it was a lot of what we saw here with President Trump. So can you give us kind of like the what's really happening on the ground versus what we're reading in the media?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In 2022, President Yoon won by basically about 20,000 votes is what they said. But everybody knows it was a giant landslide, just like what we encountered on November 5th. It was too big to rig. So they had cheated in 2020 with the legislative branch, and of course they were going to do it for the executive branch, that is the left. And there were, people were bringing up cases, people were bringing evidence. They were bringing court cases to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, which is connected to the NEC, that's the National Election Commission, they're kind of conjoined at the hip. They're supposed to be separate, but they're conjoined at the hip. And they were both stalling, saying, no, nothing has gone wrong. The ballots that look very fresh and that all voted Democrat, those are memory foam ballots.
So it's a lot of what we saw here. It's a lot. It's very similar.
Give me a second to process that for a second.
That's why they're so fresh. It doesn't look like people handled them or wrote anything because it's
all about the paper.
It looks so clean.
So can you talk about the Christian population there as well? And what, 30% of South Korea is Christian?
30% is Christian Catholic. It's a mix of Christian denominations, but it's like it was called the New Jerusalem of the East. It was the gospel spread so rapidly throughout North Korea, South Korea, and it's become one of the strong Christian havens in the East. And they're very active. Unlike the Western Church or parts of the Western Church, it's extremely politically active because most of the older pastors have all endured communism. So they're very, very active and they're very politically vocal.
We've got about 25,000 U.S. troops in South Korea.
Yes.
How has this impacted it all?
Well, the left wants to remove the U.S. troops, and there's always campaigns against America because they want to invite China in. They want to strengthen, of course, North Korea's position. So that was the big concern on the ground in South Korea, especially with our churches, we work with some of the biggest pastors, like Reverend Chun in Korea, he's one of the famous pastors that was almost locked up during the COVID crisis, big mega church.
How many churches do you have in South Korea?
We're about 40 churches in South Korea, but
And how many people you have in South Korea?
we have thousands of folks.
That's some packed congregations there.
Yeah,
But they're on fire, and but they don't like the corruption and justice, the injustice that they saw, and they want to rectify that. But there's just this constant stonewalling.
And so what's the left? So when you say the left, that's backed by the
Yes.
CCP, that's got
North Korea.
and North Korea
Yes.
influence. So that's what you really see playing out here.
Yes, Lee Jae-myung is the main leftist leader right now in the majority in the legislative branch. He's radical left. He's so pro North Korea. He with his judiciary made laws that would support North Korea. You couldn't send pamphlets to the North Korean side about freedom or about, you could not, so he actually banned those kind of things to strengthen North Korea's propaganda in South Korea, because he's super pro CCP and super pro North Korea. So that's very bad.
What is it when I was at an event and you had hundreds of South Koreans that had come here before the election to pray for President Trump? Why do they feel so compelled to come here and so passionate about supporting the president?
Well, people who are awake in Korea, I think they know there's no chance of survival other than having America stand by them. CCP, North Korea, right above. Anybody who's realistic understands and is grateful for the American servicemen and women that are there protecting our lives and the families that live there. And I think the leftists who are trying to say that America is a bad influence, they're using South, it's just totally, it's incoherent, it's completely irrational, and it's ahistorical.
I was going to say, I've seen him at so many Trump rallies and
Yeah.
so many South Koreans that have stood out there playing. Thank you so much for showing up at these rallies. It's incredible.
Yeah, and for your prayers too, for bringing all of those people in to pray. They're powerful prayers.
It's our blessing. It's our blessing. It's a great honor.
Yeah.
And we're so grateful to God. We just praise Him every day.
Amen.
And it's so hard to read because the mainstream media, you can't find the truth. It's the same thing. Like they just drive a narrative that's not the reality on the ground. So thank you for joining us and giving us the truth, Pastor.
My honor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.